Many stylists fear cutting long, naturally curly hair because the curls are rarely consistent throughout the head. They may be looser in the nape and tighter on top, or curly around the face and straighter in back, or curlier on one side of the head than the other. The most challenging curl for most cutters is looser on top and tighter in the nape, especially when the curls vary between 2B to 3C on the standard curl chart. Our favorite cuts, 90-degree long layers, increase layers, and round layers, can end up looking pretty awful when imposed on loose top curly heads. 90-degree long layers doesn't control width at the bottom where the tighter curls cause excessive volume. Increase layering technique creates a diamond-shaped silhouette with a pronounced weight line under the straightest curl. Round layered cuts become an uneven football shape. When curl is going to shrink unevenly, blended haircuts like these don't work. I will now show you my Gearhead cutting technique, which allows anyone to cut loose top curl with confidence. Gearhead technique exploits zigzag partings, over-direction, and disconnection, which is key to cutting loose top curl. Gearhead cutting activates lazy curls by permitting shorter hair to optically merge with longer hair. This client was a referral from another curly client. She likes her length, she loves her curls, and wants them to tumble down evenly from her part all the way to the tips. She is low maintenance. She uses few styling aids and air dries her hair 90% of the time, but she wants the option of a straight blowout. She's an emergency room doctor and wears her hair in a bun for work, which means her hair will be pretty straight when it comes down. Her hair is 2A on top, 2B in the temples and crown, and 3A in the nape and in front of the ears. At the wash bowl, I prepare her hair with the appropriate shampoo and conditioner for her texture. At the chair, I apply a leave-in detangling heat protector for my cutting lotion. Because my client's hair is often straight, I will cut the perimeter with tension. Perimeter tension assures a good-looking blowout, but when worn curly, the perimeter may appear slightly uneven due to variations in curl shrinkage. If she never blew out her hair, I would cut the perimeter freehand without tension, but only the perimeter, not the Gearhead layers. She likes her current perimeter length, so I dust it with the shears to tidy up uneven growth. The client's head is always tilted forward when cutting the perimeter from the back. I ask my client to place her part as she will wear it at home. This makes sure it is angled correctly from the hairline. The client's chosen part will be the focal point for the Gearhead layering. The first section surrounds her part. I mark out a vaguely canoe shape with zigzags. I pin up this section carefully so that the ends are contained and the knot is flat. Next, I part a rather half-moon-shaped gear on the opposite side to her part. This will be a blending section into the sides. It too must be pinned flat with all the ends contained. I next draw an orbital zigzag gear from temple to temple and pin it up. This section doesn't need to be secured flat as the upper two sections must be. This orbital section will make the layers in the sides and crown. Notice that I stay well above the hairline as I draw my zigzags. This is crucial. If I were to draw gears crossing the hairline and then layer, I would cut holes in my perimeter that could ruin the haircut. The first gear section to be layered is the lowest gear on the head, in this case, the nape. I mark out a gear above the nape hairline. As the hair below my parting falls, I check its density. If the dropped hair appears wispy or gapped, I redraw my zigzag parting higher up until the end's density of the hairline perimeter is solid. Comb the nape gear straight up at the center back and cut straight across in one go. This layer is kept longest to prevent the curliest hair from springing up too short when it dries. As a rule, taking off 1 inch to 1.5 inches at the nape does not affect perimeter length, and it creates internal texture, which allows the natural curls to spiral more easily. Here's what you'll see when you comb up a gear section. The ends of the hair spread out. The ends form a transparent and exact shadow of the jagged gear shape section at the scalp. Cutting within the shadow zone, you will get texture. Cutting just through the transparent zigs creates subtle texture while keeping a strong perimeter line. Cutting between the blue shadow to the upper red shadow, you create medium texture and a softer perimeter line. Cutting to the lowest point of the red sags creates heavy texture with a soft, almost transparent perimeter. To locate the different zigs and zags, hold a strand as if to cut and push the ends away from you with your comb, just as if you were checking a traveling guide. Just look very closely, they can be subtle. Cutting shorter than the shadow zone creates texture and disconnection, from conservative to extreme, depending on your choices. If I find myself uncertain when disconnecting, I use my standard comb lengths to help me decide. I place one end of my comb at the horizontal center of the gear section I mean to cut, and I gauge my length choice from there. Got it? Okay, back to my client. When hair in the nape is too bulky for my client's taste or comfort, I slide cut the upper teeth of the nape gear along its upper points. This reduces bulk without reducing length. This is optional according to each client's needs and desires. Next, I will carefully release the orbital gear section so that it doesn't mix with the just cut nape hair or the side hairline. I comb the entire orbital section upward, forward, and to the client's left in order to cut it directly over the client's parting. The hair will form a tent over the pinned up top sections. By placing the cutting plane of the orbital section at 90 degrees over the client's chosen part, I assure that, when her hair dries, the layers cascade evenly on both sides of the head with minimal effort for me. This works because the layers on the weak side will be cut slightly shorter and extend more quickly from short to long than the heavy side, which extends over a longer distance. This idea may bend your brain, but it was born out of frustration with those 90-degree layers we were taught in school and how they look when they're parted to the side. Now don't get me wrong, 90-degree upright layering is beautiful when parted down the center. The layers fall equally on both sides of the face. However, when you side part upright layers, the silhouette goes off balance. On straight hair, the weak side appears lank, with layering only on the tips, and the heavy side is too heavy at the temple and has a perceptible weight line. And curly hair only inflates the problem. Balancing the layers over the client's parting from the get-go saves a lot of labor and time. After carefully combing the hair into position from all the roots, I cut parallel to my client's parting. The hair in this zone is straighter than the hair in the nape, so it must be cut shorter since it springs up much less when dry. I cut off almost twice what I removed from the nape. As I travel up the head, each gear will be cut shorter than the one below it. This creates the proper disconnection from long to short that will activate the very loose curls on top. I again slide cut the upper teeth of this gear to reduce bulk and to activate, separate, and define the curls. Remember, slide cutting the gear teeth is optional and based on the needs of the individual client. When slide cutting the orbital gear, I carefully avoid snagging the reserved hairline. I will cut the reserved areas later. Now I cut the half moon gear. I over-direct it across the client's side parting. I cut off enough from the half-moon gear so that its net remaining length is at least 1 inch shorter than the orbital gear. Again, I will slide cut the upper teeth. Now for the focal point. I unpin the last gear and hold it at 90 degrees over my client's part. I cut it at least a net 1/2 inch shorter than the half moon section. To increase curl activation over this problematic area, I split the top gear with a zigzag parting along the client's part. I over-direct the far side across the part to the opposite side and trim off the points. I repeat this concept with the other half. After I'm satisfied with the fall of the hair and its volume, I frame the face. I first slide cut the weak side and watch how it springs. I can adjust individual strands as needed to improve the curl distribution. I repeat the slide cutting in the opposite temple. My client has short hair in her recession points, which, for cutting purposes, deepens her shallow widow's peak. Because of this, I will not cut the entire fringe as a single unit. I mark out the back of the fringe and divide it down the center through the widow's peak. From the client's parting, I cut the first half diagonally so that it will spring up to the eyebrow at the shortest point. Next, I take the other half of the fringe and use the cut widow's peak as my starting guide. I cut this side of the fringe at a steeper angle from short to long. This makes the fringe blend seamlessly into the side hair, which I now slide cut using the longest side of the fringe as my starting guide. It is a good idea to tussle the curls now and then to see how they spring. You can redraw the top gear and the half moon gear and shorten one or both depending on what you see in the mirror. However, always reserve the hairline anytime you want to redraw a gear. It doesn't matter whether the gears are placed exactly as before, you will see in the mirror where the hair falls heavily. It's now time to dry the hair and check the details. Yay! This client's curls may be a bit lazy on top, but they are neither frizzy nor chaotic. Because of this, I will use a light to medium hold curl cream rather than a stronger gel to hold the tendrils together as I blow the hair with a diffuser. I make sure to use enough product and distribute it evenly and thoroughly. I will use low wind speed and medium heat. I scrunch the curls and place them on the diffuser. Less manipulation is best for curls. Never drag your fingers through the hair when drying tendrils, or the style will have too much volume and no definition. Once the ends are 80 to 90% dry, I remove the diffuser and lift the root on top. I spread my fingers apart and dive in at the scalp. I lift my hand no more than 2 inches above the scalp and send cool to medium air under my hand. To remove my hand, I simply back out of the hair. I do not comb my fingers through to the ends. Once the curl stabilizes, I scrutinize my work in the mirror and whittle down lazy curls to help them spring. I never dry the hair until it's bone dry. That's a recipe for too much volume. Instead, I will apply some firm holding hairspray to keep the hair still as it dries all the way on her way home. We both love the results! Yay! If you are unused to asymmetrical cutting, you may wish to start gearhead cutting in simpler forms. Get out a mannequin and begin with Volume 1 of this series, Gearhead Bob, and then Volume 2, Gearhead Long Layers. When you begin using this technique in the salon, remember, of course, that every client is individual. When you're cutting very thick hair, or hair lofts, or unusually deep recession points or extreme length, you can vary the number of gears, the depth of their teeth, and the amount you remove from each gear. As long as you reserve the hairline, you can tweak individual gears or create new ones until you and your client are satisfied with the silhouette, and then frame the face perfectly afterwards. Cheers, my dears, and keep running with scissors!